Episode 86, Is It Time to Level Up Your Life? Welcome to Longing for More, where Christians come to strengthen their faith, revive their soul, and learn to live their lives with a sense of fulfillment and peace. Listen each week to learn how to incorporate your faith into your daily activities, stop wandering through life feeling empty and unfulfilled, and begin to live your more. Let's get started. Welcome to this, our first episode of the year 2020, a brand new decade and a brand new whole expanse of opportunities before us. I'm really excited about the episode today because it's really all about leveling up our life, leveling up our leadership skills, and being an influence on the world that we are in. My guest today is an author. She's a Christian speaker, and she's a coach. Her name is Royce Gomez-King, and I'm just so blessed to be able to bring her beautiful insights on so many aspects of life for you. I think you're going to really enjoy the interview. And I think it's the perfect place to start this new decade because I want to level up this podcast and bring it to you more focus on being able to help you level up your life and to live your life of purpose and meaning, to really connect with your faith in doing so. So sit back, grab a pencil and a paper because there's a lot of good insight here. So I have with me today Royce Gomez-King, and we are new friends. We met on social media, which is kind of the thing that happens these days, isn't it? So I am really excited to bring to you today Royce. She's got a very interesting background and really love her mission and her message. So to get started, Royce, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. I've been in business since 1989, and after a serial entrepreneur ride of owning and operating 12 businesses, I went into coaching startup executives and teams to help them scale sustainably. You know, the SBA says that 85% of all new businesses fail within the first 5 years. And I would love to see that statistic reversed because that's what grows and stimulates our economy.
I love that you are working with startups. And to be honest with you, I really like the fact that you had 12 different startups on your own, and what a beautiful way of taking your experiences, and instead of going, what a failure I am, saying, I'm going to take all of the lessons that I learned in that, and I'm going to help turn that whole statistic around and help people who start up be more successful. I think that's beautiful because it's not easy starting a business, is it?
No, it's not. And I think from the actual on the court experiences that I had, I'm able to give wisdom that's not able to be disseminated through theoretical practice in business school. And my clients find that very valuable, that I can relate to them, and I'm willing to share some of those stories of not only my successes but my failures.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what kinds of, is there a particular area that you prefer to work with, or do you work with any kind of business, or is it mostly entrepreneurs? Is it large corporations? What does that look like?
I don't work with large corporations. I work with small startups, and typically the teams are less than 25 people.
Okay.
I don't specialize in a niche because despite the fact that each niche has its own set of variables and set of expertise, I think that the CEO that I'm working with has that expertise in their niche. What I do is ask enough questions to help them create a business model that is scalable and sustainable, and create a marketing message that resonates with their ideal client so that they're not chasing clients, but attracting their ideal client. To accomplish those things, I don't need expertise in the niche. I need expertise in how to ask the right questions so that we can discover the answer of who they're really serving and what value proposition they bring to the table.
That is perfect because a really good coach doesn't have to be an expert in the niche itself. And I'm glad that you pointed it out. I think uh, the coaching world has kind of taken off, as we know, and it's just growing leaps and bounds. But I also know that there's a distinction between a coach who comes to the table with a list of things, the protocol. This is how you do this. This is how you do this, and not really necessarily personalizing it to the individual that they're helping versus those that come in and can intuitively lead them through the process based on, like you said, the exact situation, right?
Yes, and if they're looking for expertise in their own field, they would need a consultant, which comes in and guides and directs them and usually implements a plan.
Perfect. Yeah. Marketing is truly, having started my own business. Well, it's over 3 years ago now. I can tell
Congratulations, Bonnie.
you. Well, thank you. But
Mm.
it's one of those things where, I've said it, I am I love coaching. I feel that I'm a really good coach, but some days that whole marketing aspect of it is just so frustrating. So to have somebody that can come in and coach people through that, I think is huge. So I'm glad that you're there. So you have written some books. It sounds like you've been quite prolific in writing books. Tell me about, you said that your most recent one is Level Up. Tell us about that a little bit, if you would, please.
Absolutely. Level Up Visioning Your Leadership DNA is one of my most recent releases, and you can find that on Amazon. But what you'll find is a very quick read full of short chapters that you can instantly just pick up and start anywhere. A lot of people who are not readers will not be able to start at the beginning and finish a book. And as we know, to continue growing in our leadership skills, reading is necessary. But it's a misnomer and a myth that a lot of leaders do not enjoy reading. And so I like to write a book that can just be picked up and started anywhere. The chapters are a few pages long, and they take some of my very personal lessons and turn them into a leadership lesson around real life that I'm out living every day. I don't consider myself all that prolific because as I live life, I find examples that represent leadership principles. And I think that when we join real life with teaching, it really impacts us more than textbook learning.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of chapters that readers have reached out to me and let me know were their favorites. The one on the kayaking story has been a great read, and people can relate to that, whether they kayak or do another sport where they've had to overcome fear and learn new tools. And then the chapter on asking.
What I really resonated with, you introduced and started talking about being as an introverted child, and how even back, in early years of school, teachers would seek you out to do different things in the classroom. And I think there's a misconception out there that introverts should just kind of stay in that background and not step up into leadership roles. And in fact, I think quite the opposite is true, that those of us who are introverted actually have skills, I think, because we observe at a different level than the rest of the world. I think that don't you think that helps us come to the table with a set of skills that really makes for great leaders?
I would totally agree with that. And I've seen some research that supports that. Someone that's outgoing and domineering can sometimes roll right over people. And although they have leadership abilities, they don't have the people skills, those soft skills to relate to people. And an introvert can often be more warm and engaging and enroll people in their cause versus boss them into being a part of the cause.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with that. The other thing that I I found interesting is that my message, a part of that encapsulates the idea that we are all influencers. And just depending on whether we are going to be a good influence or a bad influence on the people that are in our lives. And, my whole message is on the lines of if we become the best that we can be, people will be attracted to us. And if we're living out our faith, that will help bring people to faith. I mean, that's just a big part of my message. And but even though we use different terms, I noticed that a lot of the things that you talk about in leadership is really parallel or maybe even the same. I haven't done the research as an influencer. Would you have anything to say about that?
Vonna, thank you for asking that. I've had several missionaries come up to me and say, would that book be appropriate for me to read? And I said, yes, we are all influencers in one circle or another. And I talk about my years way back when of homeschooling and how that's really influencing my children. So we can be an influencer whether we spend our day in the home or in corporate America or on the mission field. And I think that there are applicable lessons to everyone wherever they serve in leadership and influence others.
Right. I absolutely agree with that. So it's important that we all accept the fact that we're here for a reason
Mhm.
and that we can either kind of shrink back into the background and just let life happen, or we can have the courage to step into whatever our purpose is. And sometimes we have to really purposefully be open to the opportunities that come along and then have the courage to step into that. We don't always know where it's going to go when we take that first step, but God's got our back, and I think sometimes we just have this huge fear that if we're going to take the wrong step and we're going to mess everything up. And I'm guessing you might have a few things to say about that.
You're going to get me on my soapbox saying that. For about the last 6 months or maybe even longer, God has really shown me that we tend to play small. And He has given us gifts that He intends for us to use. And because of our fear and our self limiting beliefs, we don't use half of the gifts we're given. There's a book that was written years ago, um, The Prayer of Jabez, and then the second follow-up book I'm forgetting. But he tells the story in there of a man who dies, and St. Peter is showing him around heaven, and they get to this one warehouse-looking room, and the guy says, "What's in there?" And he says, St. Peter said, "I'm not showing you what's in there. You would not like to see it." When finally the man convinces St. Peter to show him, and he walks in, and it's these files, and he finds his name, and it's the files of unused gifts because he played small. And just a couple of weeks ago in church, our pastor had said that we have 4 intercessors really praying for us and stepping in on our behalf. We have the groan of creation, we have the Holy Spirit, we have Jesus, and we have our bodies themselves. And if you think about the power behind those 4 entities, there should be no reason that we feel afraid or powerless if we have intercessors with that kind of power and might and belief in us.
Yeah. I just always go back to God says, have no fear. It's in the Bible 365 times. I don't think that's a
Wow.
coincidence. But we
One
do.
for each day.
Right, right. But we do. And one of my biggest challenges has always been this concept that I can and I should do it myself. And I don't really need help with that. And, I've learned that we need good, wise counsel, and we need people that aren't in the middle of all of the mess that we're in to help us be able to see sometimes and help us actually, like we talked about a little while ago, sometimes it's just asking the right questions to bring the wisdom that we already have inside of us out. I love that you're doing this work. I love that you're helping people who are trying to follow after the calling that God has on their heart. I think that is just beautiful. So, do you have a story? The podcast is called Longing for More. Do you have a story of a time where you just felt that God was laying a calling on your heart? You knew that it was time to make a change, that He wanted more out of you in your life. Can you think of anything that would relate to that?
Yeah, I certainly can. There are several times in my life where I've longed for more, and I think that He really desires that we live that way, that we live unfulfilled, meaning that we are striving for more because we're underutilizing our gifts. Not that we live unfulfilled in that we are disappointed and discouraged and feel cheated or envious of others, but unfulfilled, that we need to long to fulfill our true full purpose He's called us to. And there's one particular time that stands out. Um, in 2012 and 13, I was really resisting being a coach. And the reason was everybody and their mother had become a coach. I would go networking, and everyone that passed me a card was some kind of a coach. And some of those people I actually knew the day before, and you thought, you're a life coach, and yesterday you were doing, XYZ. Your life was not put together. um, and I resisted that for a long time and began coaching MBA students and was able to get one of them into the Clinton Global Initiative University. And I thought, wow, I really do have coaching skills. But I was still resisting charging for it and making it a business. And God just put this longing on my heart. And I'm going to tie that with the longing to travel. Ever since I was a kid, I grew up in a small town, and I longed to travel, and none of my family really traveled like I thought of traveling. They would drive 3 hours to the nearest lake town and spend the weekend at the lake, but they never did leave where they were born. And that was not my idea of adventure and travel. And so in 2015, I had the chance to travel for 31 weeks.
Mm.
And most of that was in the US, but some of it was in Europe. And God collided my desire for coaching and helping people have the full belief in themselves that they could build a business along with travel. And I stayed somewhat comfortable at first, going to different towns, networking, doing what I would have normally done at home. And some opportunities presented themselves to me. One of which was while I was networking in Nashville, I was introduced to this social enterprise company. And I had done some work on social enterprise business plans, and they invited me to cover their story in Costa Rica. And I accompanied them and wrote 3 stories and ended up getting a donor who supports them with a large quantity of donations today. And as I would just go around and really invest in people and listen to the conversations in these strange cities that I found myself in, I was there to serve, and I had nothing really that I was looking for me. I was just looking for a reason to travel and serve, and doors like that continued to open up. until I found myself traveling worldwide, meeting business leaders who needed coaching.
Mhm.
And I also found that I was able to travel and be a digital nomad while still building a fledgling business into a six-figure business. And so that longing for more really called me forth into my purpose of designing a life that God has called me to lead. But it goes back to a verse, and I know that in preparation for this interview, you had asked my favorite verse, and that's so hard to choose one. But this one, James 4:10 says, "Humble yourself before the Lord, and He will lift you up." That's my favorite verse in relation to your topic of longing for more, because He humbled me in two ways. Number one, I lost everything twice and really had to seek what my true purpose was that He designed me for, and live into that despite the circumstances and despite what I could see externally, and have faith that He was calling me to do that. The second thing I had to do is, you've already addressed it. You said we tend to be independent and think of ourselves as lone soldiers and we can do this ourselves. And I've always been that way. But I had to humble myself and not only realize I was with a team, even though I'm self employed with an army of one here in my home office, I still have two virtual assistants on both sides of the country. And I have a team of coaches and mentors and cheerleaders reaching out to help me and support me. And I had to humble myself and realize not only did I need that support, but accept that support.
Yes. Very, very beautiful. It's interesting because when you started talking about when you were being drawn to enter into the coaching world, and there were so many coaches out there, and you made the comment, and some of them I knew them, yesterday, and their life was a mess. And what I love about it is that sometimes those messes in our lives are the things that God brings us through so that we can help others through their mess too. And I know
Absolutely.
that He's absolutely done that in my life. And I believe that that's part of the reason that we have challenges in life, is so that we can learn and grow and then help others through those challenges as well. So,
Agreed. That's why I said I'm so willing to share my business failures with my clients, because as a business coach, it really helps them understand that I've been where they are in that moment, and I've feared losing everything, or I've doubted my own abilities to have the business acumen to build a strong business, etc. I've had those internal feelings
yeah,
of doubt and lack of motivation.
yeah. I think when you're able to share those experiences, that builds a trust factor that you can't get any other way than to just say, I've been there, and I understand, how you feel about this. So yeah, I love that. So if someone wanted to get a hold of you or find one of your books, or interested in coaching, or struggling with their business and wants to have a conversation, how could they find you?
Two places. RoyceTalks.com is my website, and that will also give you my social links. I am very active on LinkedIn, and I have a Facebook business page, and so my website will take you to those pages and connect you to me on those platforms. And then in terms of the books, those are available on Amazon, both in the digital version and the print version, depending on which type of reader you are and what kind of book you like.
Okay. Well, this has been so helpful. I really enjoyed learning about this. Is there any last messages, any thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
One of my favorite quotes is from Maya Angelou, and she says, "Success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. And I can tell you that when I lost everything the second time, I spent hours a week visioning what life should look like and making it so. And I feel very successful because of that. I really, truly love what I get to do each and every day. And I like the way I've designed to be able to do it working virtually with clients around the world. And so I really do feel fortunate. And I just challenge you. I've talked to people who are decamillionaires and talked to people making 50,000 a year. And there are some that don't feel successful at both ends of the spectrum. And I can tell you that success is not something that we compare and contrast with others, but what does success look like for you?
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that. That too is, I mean, to me, success really is what we define personally. And the world really has us convinced that we're only successful if we have a certain
Yes,
level of income or a certain level of a power of influence. We all know people who just keep accumulating more and more and more. And when I talk about longing for more, I think people think that's what I mean, but that's not what I mean. I'm talking about more peace and joy that comes from that, just loving our lives and loving who we are, based, exactly what you said in your quote. So that's a beautiful way to conclude this, because I actually even had a little program at one time with a girlfriend of mine. We called it Success Refocused, and
mm,
we're working with others to help them, rethink what success really means for them, exactly like you just described, because we we should be able to give ourselves permission to live our lives the way that we want to live them. And as long as we're doing that and walking in God's will, it's all just the way it should be, right? I mean, I agree with you. It's kind of one of those things where when they tell you to write down your perfect day, most of mine are already there. you know, I'm not
mine
on the beach
too.
as often as I want to, but pretty much everything else is, I mean, and there's just so much joy in being able to go be with friends when I want to, or go spend time with the grandkids, or go to a conference, whatever it is. And, um, you know, I, I think where it gets tricky are those people who are building the business or who are still working in the corporate world, and they're locked down a certain number of hours every week where they have to be there, and so they don't always have that flexibility. But it's kind of like we just need to remind them that there are choices they can make with the remaining 2/3 of their life and how they spend that time. And sometimes we get that scarcity mentality, and it's like there just isn't enough time, but there is. We all get to make the choice how we'd spend our days. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. It's been just such a joy to hear what you're doing and how you're sharing your gift with the world. And I'm really excited to be able to get this out there for my listeners so that they can learn from your wisdom and experience. So thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you, Vana, for inviting me.
Yes, I'm so glad we connected.
Me too.
Well, there you have it. So many great ideas on how to level up your life, how to take those failures and turn them into a positive in your life. I hope that you got some nuggets there that you can incorporate. If you know of someone who would benefit from hearing this message, I ask that you please share it with them. Also, if you'd be willing, I would really appreciate it if you would go on to iTunes and leave a comment. Those ratings that we get there really help others to find the show. And I just feel a calling to make sure that the people out there in the world realize that it's so important that we connect with our faith and we use it in all aspects of our lives. And the only way we're going to get that word out there is if we talk about it and share it with those we care about. So I want to just thank you again for stopping by today. Go, be blessed, and live your more.